Hello everybody, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelly McNeely.
And we're here with the November 2022 Block of the Month. Okay, so second to last star of the year.
Yes.
So this one we put together differently. It goes together a little differently, but it's not hard.
No.
So take it away, Shelly. What fabrics do you
have? Okay, our normal.
Are you going to move that down so you can show your fabrics?
Sure. Okay, so this year we're using a white and our focus and 2 coordinating. So these have to go with this focus. If you're not making it for the guild to turn in, you can use whatever focus fabric you want.
Okay, now for this block in particular, what size pieces do they need?
Okay, so from the white, you need 4 3 3/4 inch squares and 4 4 3/4 inch squares. And then from the focus and the 2 coordinating, you're going to need a piece that's 38, for each one, a piece that's 38 inches long. And then the width should be like between an inch and 1 3/4. And when you lay them, the strips next to each other, before you sew them, it should be 4 inches.
So I'll tell you, if you have full, width of fabric, just cut that. Don't worry about cutting off the extra.
Right.
It'll be left at the end. It might be sewn together, but
yeah,
big deal. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, just prep-wise, is we need to take these 4 triangles of each size and you're going to cut them on the diagonal. Now you can free cut it, you can do like this with a ruler, just 1 cut on the triangle. You can leave them kind of in 2 stacks of 4 because that's what we're eventually going to need, but you can also just stack them all together because we won't get to those for a few minutes. Oops. Luckily we have extra. Maybe hold that mat down, Adriane. See, they don't have to be perfect. It'll be fine. Okay, so then the first step, really, that was just prep work, is going to be sewing our strips together. Now, I will tell you that in our quest for improvisational stars, this is the least improvisational star there is, because Shelly's got very particular rules here.
Well,
but because she thinks it looks best with the focus where we're telling you to put it. Now, I'll let Shelly talk in a minute. But and she doesn't even have strips there. She's just got fabric.
No, because I cheated already. So
she already sewed hers together. So she says I sew faster than her, and she wanted to be ahead of me. So you can pick which one is wider, it doesn't matter. Right. I kind of aimed for them all roughly the same, but I didn't worry. I looked to see what I had left, what I could easily do, and I cut strips. But don't even worry about cutting off the selvage at this point. But in these rules, the focus has to be on, at this point we're going to call it the top, okay? It could be the bottom if you turn it over, but so you're gonna take fabrics and you're gonna decide the order of the colors. Shelly likes this focus where it is. The other 2 don't really matter. It can go light to dark, whatever. It doesn't matter, right?
Right, but I think you should arrange it slightly different.
I'm arranging them how you have in our cheater photo that I'm looking at.
Okay, go ahead.
And then, so you're gonna take and stagger them.
Okay, you got it backwards because it needs to be turned around.
Oh, all right.
And it doesn't matter.
Okay, so you're going to do this.
Okay.
Basically, that was what she's saying I had backwards. I was staggering them the wrong way. So,
well,
all right, why don't you show, Shelly?
Okay.
She'll take my fabric.
I will.
She didn't bring any up here.
I know. You need to start at this end.
Well, if I stagger them, they're going to be staggered at both ends.
Well, you're right. It will.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Go on.
And then this one. When I did it, I oriented them this way just to make it easier to understand what I was doing. So.
And just so you know, why she's doing this is because we're going to make a 45-degree cut.
Right.
And so you kind of you have to stagger them a little more than what you would think the offset is of the 45-degree, because you're going to lose some in the seam.
Because this is the end we're cutting off. That's the only reason why I wanted to start on this end.
Right. But, you know, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have been both staggered. And I had extra fabric. So. Anyway, so we stagger them. Don't worry about the
half
salvage.
an inch to 3/4 an inch about. And I'm ignoring the salvage when I'm doing the staggering, really.
Okay. And then we're going to sew them along that long seam. And press how?
I pressed them open because it's easier to make them lay flat when you're going to cut your diamonds. It makes it.
Oh yeah, they're not as big a lump is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to comment right now on the pressing for this whole block. In this case, she says press them open. After this, pretty much press to what I'm going to call the less complicated.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you've got a seam that comes together with 3 fabrics that have seams coming to a fabric with no seams, press to that one with no seams, because way less lumps.
Yeah.
And you're kind of, if you do that all through it, at the end they kind of nest nicely. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I will tell you, the center seam at the very end is still going to be a lump.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. There's there's 8 pieces of fabric that come together there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go away and we're going to sew these long strips together, and we'll come back and talk about the cutting of those. So don't worry about that right now. Just get those sewn together. If your strips are 38 inches long and you stagger them, you'll have enough. If they're extra long, you'll have way plenty.
Right, and the staggering probably doesn't matter quite as much if you have,
Right, it just means you waste less when you make that first 45-degree cut.
Right. That's the waste on this.
Yeah. All right. All right, so we have our long strip of our 3 fabrics sewn together. I did forget to mention, after you press them, you should make sure they're really close to 3 inches. If they're bigger, Shelly would recommend you trim them to 3 inches.
I'd only worry about if it's much bigger,
Right. If they're smaller, well, you took a really big seam. And I don't know. We don't know what to tell you.
We don't know. It might be okay. We just don't know.
because we add these in a future step. We're going to add triangles onto them, and there's extra, so it could be okay.
Yeah.
It could be totally wrong. But. Okay. So this is the next step. I'm going to say it's the hardest part of this block. But it's not hard. No. It's just a little. It's one of those things that I get confounded by these 45-degree lines on the ruler, and actually that's just a thing in my head. But one thing to remember. Now Shelly's got a different ruler, so and so her diagonals. She doesn't have a line on all the diagonals.
No, just one.
And so that's her 45-degree. On this one, I have a 45-degree line like right here. But see, it's right in the middle there. It says 45-degree. So this one's also a 45-degree. And I'll tell you, I have gone successfully, made the cut, walked back up to cut again, and what did I do? And it's because I'm looking at the wrong one of the 45-degree angles. So if it's backwards, just look at the other angle, if that makes any sense. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to take this end here and my selvage here is white, so it's hard to see, but I'm going to make a staggered cut right across this. And so I take my 45-degree ruler, and that's the wrong way. So I want to, that's going the wrong way too. Okay. How if I turn it over? Probably still wrong. I want to go this direction, so I find the 45-degree like this, right? It's right here on the bottom. Remember, if your ruler is angled and you don't have enough length, you can put it on the bottom of this strip. It doesn't have to be on the top. If I put it on the top, I wouldn't have enough to cut. And then I just want to make sure that I can cut across here and get all 3 fabrics. See, I could have staggered this a lot more. So I am wasting a fair amount of fabric.
Yeah.
Now Shelly has already made her 45-degree cut.
And
Okay.
with my 6-inch ruler, because I only have the one diagonal, it's not quite as hard to figure it out. Because you just lay it on, I laid mine on the bottom.
But you don't have, but if you have a big piece of fabric, you don't have as much length for cutting. So anyway, okay, so now we've got this 45-degree cut. And I will say, because your fabric kind of moves, you can occasionally, as we're cutting across, double check that your 45-degree, you don't lose it as you make subsequent cuts. But hopefully you won't. Okay, so now, so she's made that cut, and I'm going to put a piece up here, which is actually the leftovers from my yesterday. Oh, you can leave that.
I can turn it around. That's what we do next, right?
Oh, okay.
We turn it around after you make it.
See,
turn it around.
Shelly is very prejudiced against left-handers.
I am.
But you know what? I say left-handers, we're more resourceful, so we can cut either way. We don't have to do these flipping around shenanigans. So we'll flip it around for the lefty. And at this point, what you do, you still need your 45-degree line, but you need on your ruler, you're going to look at where the 45-degree line intersects with 3 inches, okay? And you're going to put that 45-degree line on there, and I had it going the other way, so now Shelly's messed me up. But so that's 45, and that helps me no way.
Okay, I cheated. I put stickies on mine so I know where here's my 45 here, and I put little blue tapes at my intersection, and then I went straight up from there, and that helps me figure out how to line it up. So I just line it up like that, and then we're going to cut here.
Yeah, you're going to cut. So basically, you've got a 45-degree angle here, and her line should be on that. It's not really. Yeah, and then her 45-degree angle is down here, and she's got 3 inches on the ruler, not 3 inches on the diagonal, which this is the diagonal. So it's 3 inches across the ruler, and you're going to make that cut right there.
Right.
And you're going to do that 8 times.
There's going to be 8 of them. That's why it makes it easier if you mark your ruler. You just have to keep sliding your ruler over, and you
right. So when we say the 3 inches, we mean 3 inches on the ruler measure, not 3 inches horizontal measure.
Right.
Okay.
You look at the 3 mark on your ruler, as long as you're starting at 1.
And so what does one of them look like? Shelly has one cut.
I do.
And so after you get one, you could even set it up there like as a guide for you. Don't cut it, but so now you're going to cut across this strip, and you should get, depending on how long your pieces were, you'll get the 8. I actually had enough yesterday that I could have just barely gotten one more. So that's not needed, so don't cut it. But you do have extra, I guess, if you goof up. Okay, so we are going to come back with 8 diamonds. Okay?
Right.
So we have our 8 diamonds, and this right here is a stack of 4. We want you to take them and make 2 stacks of 4. And for each stack of 4, you're going to also assign to it a stack of 4 small triangles and 4 large triangles from your white fabric. Okay, so I'm setting those ones aside. That's stack 2. So stack 1, now every time we do this, and we're going to do this for both stacks, this is how your diamond is going to be oriented. Don't turn it. We want the focus fabric like near the top, and we want these, we're having these stripes running vertically, okay? So the first thing you need to do is you're going to take your stacks of triangles, and And I'm going to do it with one because they'll fall off if I don't. But I'm going to orient them, and I want everything right sides up at this point. You're going to stick a triangle with the right angle at the bottom and the hypotenuse right there. Oh, I wish I should have that other fabric, other
Like
color here.
It faces into the...
Yeah, and so the other one goes the same. So it's like this train of what I... Shelly's laughing at so it's a big triangle and a little triangle.
And they're both side by side looking the same.
Yeah. And then this little piece is going to snuggle right inside there. And that's how we are going to sew these. That's the orientation for this first 4. Okay, so this one won't change orientation.
Right.
And keep these like this. And then then we want you to add to all 4 of these the small triangle first. And when you're sewing it on, you're going to flip that over and align it so the triangle, the white triangle sticks up above the edge of your focus fabric, about 3/8 of an inch. And that's 3/8 along this edge, okay? So there should be extra hanging off of the other end. Some. I mean, I might have this one a little high, but you want it, and the reason why you want that, and you can test it, because you may do some unsewing. If you do your seam, and this does not come out like even across here, like a straight line, then you need to move that triangle because you want that to be a straight line.
Right. We don't want to have to trim.
Right. And you will eventually trim off this little flaggy, but that's
Right.
it. Okay, so we're going to sew on those 4. And this is where I say, like, press to the less complicated. So in this case, I'd be pressing to the white triangle because there's all these seams here. I guess when I say press to the less complicated, or do the dark. If they're equally complicated, then press to the dark. Okay, so this is now sewn on. I'm going to do this in one step.
Yeah.
Okay, then you're going to take, and we don't have one sewn, but so this edge is sewn on, and then you're going to take this one and you're going to sew it to this piece of the coordinating fabric. And you want to make sure that extends the 3/8 above, again the same, so you have the same kind of seam, and it will stick down. On my block from yesterday, I didn't trim it, so you can kind of see they stick down a little extra in different places. That's fine, but you want this edge to be a straight seam.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to come back with those four for what we're calling stack 1. So you should have 4
Triangles?
yeah, all right, we'll call them triangles. They're funny looking triangles. Yeah, they are triangles.
Yeah.
Okay. Like normal, we forgot to mention something. Before you sew on that second larger triangle to the square, you needed to trim right on this edge and make that straight. If you didn't, it would just be lumpy. You know, it's not a deal breaker.
Right. You could trim it after you sew. If you wanted to,
it's just a little trickier. Okay, so this one I didn't sew, but the other one, Shelly has hers up there. Here's one of mine. I ended up pressing to the white on both of these just because it seemed like it was getting lumpy right there. So
you're probably right.
Yeah. So at this point, these are ready, except for if you have any of these flag things sticking out here or here, don't worry on this edge. That's not a big deal. Just trim those off because you'll need those trimmed off before we sew things together. So then, now we have our stack 2 of the diamonds. And like I said before, you're going to take and put a diamond up the same orientation. And you actually, if you are confident you're not going to get mixed up, you could do these at the same time. Just make 2 stacks. So the only difference here is that we change the direction of the triangle. So the small triangle now goes on the other side. It's still 90 degree at the bottom. And then the bigger triangle, the same thing, 90 degrees at the bottom. Make your little triangle train. This will slide down in there, and then you see this small one will sew to this coordinating fabric this time. Same instructions. Move it up. Make sure. I actually had to unsew one because I didn't go up high enough. And another thing, when I was sewing on my large triangle, I'm like, this large triangle should be oversized. I mean, as you can see on these, there's a fair amount at the bottom, and I didn't. And I checked the width on my diamond, and I'd actually trimmed it to 3 1/4 inches. So I had to make that. And you're not trimming on, it's not this, you're trimming this width. This is the one that matters. And that, if your triangles aren't oversized, then you've sized something wrong.
So put it against one of your other ones that is right, and then it'll help you.
Yeah. Okay, so was there anything else we were going to have them do? So
I don't think so.
Yeah, so now when we come back, we'll have all of our new triangles, and they will all have their little flaggy things gone. Right? That's
Trim these off too? Or just the other ones? Or trim these off?
No, all the flags.
Yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We have our 8 new triangles. We only brought up 2 of each. But so the little flaggy things are trimmed off. Like I said, these ends on the white don't matter. Mm-hmm. We are going to talk about that a little bit in the next step. But when you look at these at this point, I do want to point out, because if you go on to the next step, it's too late to fix it. But there should be at least 1/4 inch below these points, okay? And it's probably more, somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch, don't you think?
Probably, yeah.
And that's deliberate, because Shelly worked on these sizing of these block, because like we've said in other months, that one of the hardest part about stars is keeping your point. And the way to keep these points is to, in traditional, I think, quilt blocks, they bring those points right out to the edge.
Right.
And we're pulling them back in, giving you a little extra room.
So you don't have to worry about it as much, hopefully.
Right. And so you could even trim your block a little bit wonky and you'll still be fine. So you really need to look right now and make sure that you have that 1/4 inch below on that point. If you don't, then my guess is something was off in one of your measurements, and it could have been you moved the triangle up way higher than 3/8 of an inch above it, and so it didn't come down below. Or the other thing, like I said, I had one last time that was wider than 3 inches this way. That can do it, or if it's wider than 3 inches this way. And that was supposed to have already been taken care of before you made your diamonds. But if it's wider, you still can trim it and down and then re-put that corner on. Okay, so that said, we have these. The next step, and actually the next 2 steps are, we're just gonna do it in 2 steps. You're gonna make 2 stacks of the 2 kinds of triangles.
Right.
And you could you actually could sew them together. You're going to sew them together on a center. We want you to do it on the center we're telling you here. Don't do the other center. You could, but it makes the next step won't work. The next step won't trim right. So, did I just confuse them?
I hope not.
Well, because I started, when I was doing my other one, when I did this one, I started to put, we're putting together to make 4 squares like that. But you could make 4 squares like this, and then you sew them differently. And it works, but there's a measuring we want you to do after you have your 4 squares.
Right.
That you can't do if you do it that way. You can't do it the same way. Okay, so we're just gonna take, and you're gonna make 4 squares. You're gonna sew along this center seam.
Right. The hypotenuse of one of each kind is what you're sewing, of the triangle that you made. Right?
Oh, the hypotenuse of the triangle.
Yeah,
Yes,
the triangle
yes,
that you just made.
Yeah. Which should be also the hypotenuse of the large.
That's true.
Large white triangle.
Right.
If you press to the less complicated, this is the part where
When I was looking at my,
they might or they might not nest.
if you always go to the side where your focus is, I think it'll twirl all the way around that way. When we're done, I think it will.
When you're pressing,
I think
press
so.
to that way. Oh, okay. I was wondering whether these would actually nest right now, but I don't know if they do. They may not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I wouldn't be obsessive of whether this point actually meets exactly.
Definitely not.
Just match the sides.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, now we have our 4 sub blocks, which, if we were being very precise, we would trim these right now down to 6.5, which I think in the instructions I probably said to do that, but with the caveat that when you're trimming, you're making sure that below these points you have at least 1/4 inch.
Because these are oversized.
They are.
Should be.
Right. So, like for example, this one, this is a 6.5 inch ruler, if I stick it up on there, you can see there's extra.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay, so the thing that I did differently, so you can trim them right now down to 6.5, and if you sew an accurate 1/4 inch, if you do trim them to 6.5, then you are going to have to sew an accurate 1/4 inch seam when you finish them. I am not always certain I'm going to be that accurate. So this one I actually have already trimmed, but I set my ruler on a block, and I'll show you on a regular, an untrimmed one. But I made sure that I had, and actually I have almost 1/2 inch below each one of my points here. And I trimmed this inner edge off, and I left it raggedy on the outer edge, which gives me more flexibility when I do the final trim. I've got the 1/2 inch means I'm not going to cut off my points. And as long as you have at least 1/4 inch, but I would even err a little bigger.
Yeah.
Then
if you aren't doing, especially if you aren't doing it exactly
right.
6.5. Yeah.
And then, so like on this block, if I were going to trim it in front of you, but I'm not, I would go like this, look to see that I've got this extra down here, and then I would just trim these 2 edges. And then on top of that, now, if you're going to do the Shelly method, then you're just going to sew your 4 blocks together. You're going to have all of the points aiming in. Right. I guess we should show that, huh? Shelly only has 1 block.
Yeah, I didn't bring mine.
So they go like this and aim in. If you're gonna, so you would sew, you'd lay this one on top of this one.
Just like a 4 patch.
Yeah, sew it together. Press, like we said, to whatever seems less lumpy.
Right.
And then sew that final center seam. My method, I do have to concentrate on the center more. So, because I'm only trimming these 2 and I'm not worried about this outer edge, so it could be different. So when I line these up, I'm going to line up based on lining up the centers. And I will sew from the center out, and then do that same on the other, press them open, and then when I do the 4, I'm going to line the middle up. And then I don't care what the edges meet. Okay? And so when we come back, we will do it whichever way is easier for you. If that just sounded like gibberish, then trim them to 6.5. Right?
Right. If you do it like the normal way patterns are written.
Right. But if you do it our way, no. Okay. So I'm trying to think, was there anything that we forgot to mention in the last step? I know Shelly said if you press these in the step that we just did, if you press them toward the focus fabric, each one, she might have mentioned that, then it will nest.
It's one you probably would pick anyway.
Right.
But then they all, because it twirls, the pattern twirls itself, it works out.
And they'll kind of nest a little better.
Yeah.
I don't think we missed anything.
I don't think so.
Okay, so let's sew these together and we'll come back with our finished blocks. And this one that I did for my sample one, we had against that white background so you couldn't see, but you know, mine is not trimmed from yesterday. And it's going to be easy to trim. Right. It'll make anybody happy.
Because it's mostly trimmed. You mostly kind of trimmed it already, really a lot extra when you did before you sewed them together, the final sew. Or was it just a minor trim?
I just did a minor trim.
Okay.
Yeah. So minor, probably closer to 13 inches.
Okay.
In parts.
Yeah.
You know, instead of 12 and a half.
But you did make sure you had plenty here.
Yes.
Way more than a quarter.
Yes, way more than a quarter. So it would be almost impossible for me to accidentally cut that off. So, I mean, I'm sure I could find a way. But.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We've got our finished block.
Right.
Woohoo! 11 down, 1 to go.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so I could show you. We both trimmed them.
Yep.
It's, you know, right there. I have plenty around my point.
Yes, so do I. And like I said, and I trimmed it how you were talking about. I didn't do the 6.5.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
I didn't.
All right. She listens to me occasionally.
I thought I'd try it.
Yeah. So, and then you don't have to be so precise on your quarter inch.
Right.
Okay, so these blocks, like we said at the beginning, are due, January, not till 2023.
I know.
All righty. So, have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And we'll see you in a month.